Week 3 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few running backs I looked at off the wire this week. So this week on the wire, a lot of handcuff backs and some guys who've gotten opportunities in Week 2. The first back, Kareem Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs. So this pretty much is a 50-50 backfield right now over there in Kansas City with Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. I've said in other videos, Pacheco, he just hasn't looked the same since that leg injury that is Isaiah Pacheco. And now, obviously, Kareem Hunt last year played decent when Pacheco was out. And they're pretty much 50-50 split. So Week 2 for Hunt in a tough loss. First Philadelphia, 8 carries, 31 yards, a catch, 3 receiving yards. And Kareem Hunt out there in tons of leagues at 74%. And this week, a good matchup coming up at the New York Giants, where we just saw him got gashed by Javonte Williams. And in Week 1, Ja'Cory Croskett-Merritt had a good game versus defense. So Kareem Hunt, if the workload goes up a little bit for him, he's definitely a running back that could be the starter and get majority of the touches over here in Kansas City. And definitely someone, it just seems like Kareem Hunt every year finds a way to get on the field and make plays. Back Najee Harris to the Los Angeles Chargers. So early in that game in Week 2 at Vegas, Najee Harris, he didn't do much in the first half with C touches. And then in the third, fourth quarter, Amari Hampton, he didn't do much. Fumbled in the fourth quarter late. And then Najee Harris came in. And like I said, he got most of the work in the fourth quarter, even before the fumble. So Harris, Week 1, he didn't see the field pretty much at all. 1 carry, 5 yards, a catch, 5 receiving yards. And then Week 2 of Vegas, like I said, he got 8 touches, 28 rush yards, 2 catches, 20 yards on 2 targets. So Harris, a lot of people dropped him in fantasy leagues. Right now, available in 63% of fantasy leagues. And like I said, with the fumbling issue with Amari Hampton, Harris might get more work, and he's getting healthier after he missed the majority of training camp with the eye injury and a firework accident. So Week 3, a very tough matchup versus the Denver Broncos, one of the better defenses in the league. But right now, this backfield, to me, looks like it could be going in Harris's favor after Hampton with the late fumble. And let's be honest, this Charger team, they were throwing the football pretty much the whole first half, where Hampton only had a few touches. So if I'm a Hampton owner, I'm definitely concerned. And right now, Najee Harris looked like the better back in that Week 2 game. The next back, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rachaad White, he looked good, 6.5 yards per carry in the Week 2 victory, including a game-winning touchdown at the end. But Bucky Irvin's still the man over there in Tampa Bay. But maybe White is a handcuff and a guy who could work in sporadically, could get touches. Because Week 1, he didn't do much. 2 carries, 14 yards, a catch, 2 yards. And then Week 2, we used in that ball game, like I said, a big one. 10 carries, 65 yards, a touchdown, 2 catches, 1 yard. So Rachaad White, he has the starter experience. 2023 was the starter. Last year came into the year as a starter, but then Bucky Irvin outperformed him. So like I said, this week's more of a handcuff type of week at the running back position. No one's really popping out to be a big-time ad, but these guys can help as bench and depth pieces, and Rachaad White is well available in 64% of fantasy leagues. Next running back, Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns. So Jerome Ford, he's out there in 65% of leagues. It could be a 3-man committee now over there, what we saw in Week 2. Quinshon Judkins, he's back in the lineup for Cleveland after pretty much all the training camp with off-the-field issues. He didn't participate. Dylan Sampson looked good in Week 1. And Jerome Ford, it looked like he was going to be the odd man out, but all these guys in this backfield had 10 touches total. So Week 2 with Baltimore, 6 carries, 31 yards, and 5 catches, 23 yards. So we know Ford's always been a smaller back, decent in between the tackles, good pass catcher out of the backfield. And right now it could be a gross committee over there in Cleveland, but like I said, anytime a guy's going out there and getting 10.5 fantasy points and at least getting touches in his backfield, even between 2 other players, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on, is Jerome Ford, available in 65% of fantasy league. Next back, Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons. So one of the better handcuff running backs in all pro football. We know his rookie year, he had 1,000 yards before the next season. Atlanta went out there and drafted Bijan Robinson, but he got good workload in Week 2, even though that game was out of hand, and Algier took up the rest of it after they were up pretty easily, was Atlanta. So Week 1 versus Tampa Bay, he did have 10 carries in that one, 24 yards. And Week 2 in Minnesota, like I said, closing it out, 16 carries, 76 yards, a touchdown, a catch, 4 yards. So like I said, one of the best handcuffs in all fantasy football and pro football is Tyler Algier, out there in 70% of fantasy leagues. In Week 3, it could be a little bit of the same, where Atlanta's off to a good start, and then fourth quarter, they run with Algier a little bit to close the game out. After Bijan tied out that Panther defense, which we know is not that good. So if you need a handcuff, and possibly with buys coming up in the next few weeks here, and in deeper leagues, a running back, Tyler Algier, I think, is a decent option, and definitely an ad this week. The next running back, Blake Corum of the Los Angeles Rams. So Blake Corum, first couple weeks, some work is Blake Corum, and last week he had a good ball game and almost outperformed in that one Kyren Williams in terms of fantasy points. So week 1 versus Houston, a carry, 2 yards, a catch, 14 yards. And then week 2, more work he got in that one at Tennessee. Five carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown it was for Corum. So obviously Kyren's still the number one guy over there. Corum a handcuff, and a guy who's going to get situational work. But he did get a goal line stamper, even though it was late in that game where they had a commanding lead, was the Los Angeles Rams, where Corum ran into the end zone. But like I said, he's going to be the backup. Kyren got the contract extension, $11 million a year from this Los Angeles Ram team. A lot of people thought last season Corum was going to eat into the workload, but someone definitely to keep an eye on and add in deeper leagues is Blake Corum. Next back, Kyle Monangai of the Chicago Bears. So running back is a tough position to fill, and so far a lot of guys are struggling in the early going, and that's why this list is a little deeper than maybe these other waiver wire lists. So Monangai available in tons of fantasy leagues right now, 93%. And the first couple weeks, week 1, he didn't see the field at all pretty much. 1 catch, 11 yards. And then week 2 with Detroit, I know they got blown out 52-21, 7 carries, 28 yards, a catch, 8 yards. He's the backup back behind Swift. We know Swift found the end zone in week 2 in that ball game at the Detroit Lions. But Monangai, a lot of garbage time it was, but also Ben Johnson, he said before week 2's ball game, they got to get him more into it. So Monangai, he showed he could do a little bit. I know it was garbage time, like I said, but if Swift goes down, the rookie's going to step in and be the guy, is the number one running back over there for this Chicago Bear team. And obviously Ben Johnson likes him, and we know Ben Johnson over there in Detroit, where he was the coordinator for 3 seasons, liked using 2 running backs with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So I think Monangai, as the weeks go on and he gets this playbook down even more, definitely a running back that could be on the radar, and he's an ad this week. And the final running back I looked at off the wire is Jeremy McNichols of the Washington Commanders. So McNichols, now he's going to step into a role, I believe, him or Christian Rodriguez. He's available in 99% of fantasy leagues. But McNichols, he was ahead of Christian Rodriguez on the depth chart, where Rodriguez, the first 2 games of the year, has been a healthy scratch. And obviously Austin Eckler out for the season with a torn Achilles. Now Ja'Cory Croskett-Merritt's going to be the starter over there, but he's not much of a passing downs back. Is Croskett-Merritt in between the tackle type of running back. And McNichols last season, he actually played a decent amount, 55 carries, 261 rush yards, 4 touchdowns, 9 catches, 27 yards. And so far this season, obviously he hasn't done much. Week 1 versus the Giants, 4 carries, 25 yards. And week 2 with Green Bay, towards the end of that game where Eckler got hurt, he was on the field a decent amount, but didn't get any touches. So McNichols, a deep league ad, available in 99% of fantasy leagues. And like I said, this Commander team, they like using 2 backs. Croskett-Merritt, he's not going to go out there and get 25, 30 touches. And McNichols, at worst, I think, is going to be in that Austin Eckler role. 3rd down, passing downs back, and get some carries in between the tackles. And obviously, he knows his system as well, being there the last couple of years. So that's a few running backs I looked at off the wire for week 3 of the fantasy football season.